we'll move on to Scotland versus Ireland. I touched on the Scotland game. I saw very little of it, but I did watch Premier Sports reaction as opposed to Virgin Media for no great reason, more coincidental. But it was interesting hearing the Scots. They were really focused on this Irish game, and it's amazing you get the mood of a country sometimes for just tuning into the three lads they get on the panel on Premier Sports, and yet they seem very focused on looking for revenge. And I think the interviewer was like, kind of saying, "Oh, we're not looking for revenge against Ireland," but asking the players. So they're going to be really up for this game. Ireland obviously battered Scotland 3-0, given the circumstances, that the fact that they had that World Cup people remember the World Cup playoff defeat to Ukraine. So that was a big disappointment. So yeah, looking forward to this game in Hampden Park. I'll touch on the mathematics about it because Ireland, I think, can still top the group. I know they can, but they need a lot of results to go their way. Hampden Park, Scotland versus Ireland. How do you see this game going, and how big a game is it for Kenny ahead of the Euro 2024 qualification?
Yeah, it's a game that could easily go south. I think it's a game where Scotland could get the run of us. They look really bright against Ukraine. I saw bits of the game. That midfield they have with McGinn in there, Colin Mcgregor is really coming into his own. Particularly with Celtic, but also with Scotland over the last while.
They played a back four as well. It's important to note they've gone from a back five to a back four. Yeah,
and McTominay's got with McTominay they got that ability to move between the two, and he's obviously he mightn't be Manchester United Champions League standard, but he's an extremely good player to have, and we wouldn't mind him ourselves. But very interesting that obviously Andy Robertson wasn't playing. Not sure if he's in the squad or not, but a lot of Scottish fans absolutely love Kieran Tierney, and I think he's perfect for that role. And a lot of Scottish fans seem to be really happy with the four at the back and seem to think it worked well. Obviously Patterson came off injured and Aaron Hickey came in there, who's 15-20 million pound move to Brentford from Bologna. So there's a lot of things going well for Scotland. Obviously they were just had a hangover from, as you said, the playoff against Ukraine when they came to Dublin, and going to Hampden Park's going to be a different story. I can't remember when last an Irish team were there, because obviously when Scotland beat us, it was at Celtic Park, the Shawnee Maloney goal. So it's going to be an interest. It's very easily one of those games, I think, Dan, where we could be taking one step forward to take two back, and it doesn't really feel to me like this. When we won 3-0, all you want to play 3 or 4 more games in a quick space of time. It's been quite a long summer, and it'd be difficult for those Irish lads to match that performance level. But what I would say is we do seem to have quite a good back five in place now, I think, which he will play. And I think he might go with a little bit more protection in central midfield. But it's a good test. It is a good test. It's someone who I think, if we want to qualify for the Euros, but also maybe a World Cup in a few years, it's a team you want to be beat.
Yeah, and they're going to be moving up to, this is going to decide their Nation League, but you look at the Nations League right now, and Scotland would be favourites to move up to potentially Nation League Group A, and England could be back down in Group B, which is absolutely crazy stuff. So it's actually a few days in Nations League if you're into that sort of stuff. I'll go through the Irish team that beat Scotland, Sean. I think that's good to just refresh the memory, because I had to do that myself. I'd nearly struggled to get 9 or 10 of these. But yeah, Kelleher was in goal. Nathan Collins, Duffy, and John Egan were the back three. And then we went with Alan Brown and James McLean as the 2 wing backs. We went with Josh Cullen-Malumbi and Knight in midfield. Really good game from the 3 of them. And Troy Parrott up front with Obafemi, which really worked. I thought the 2 up front really worked. It kind of suited us, not just the opposition, but Ireland in general. So out of that starting 11, we're looking at the likes. You want to touch on maybe a few players. You mentioned Obafemi, who's had Kenny and the Swansea manager been back and forth a little bit on that. And Obafemi wanted to leave Swansea, so he hasn't been able to get back in the team the last few weeks. There's a few players in and out of form. Where you're kind of looking at the few changes in that starting 11 ahead of the Scotland away.
You got to remember, with Obafemi, Stephen Kenny didn't pick him for quite a bit of time. So you don't want to cast judgment on a player, but when it happens more than once, you do maybe start to think what's going on. And Swansea, I know they've Joe Piero up front, but they aren't blessed with attacking options, and they aren't riding high at the top of the championship. So it doesn't look good. I think it
was interesting that Kenny said there's 3 sides there, or 2 or 3 sides to every story.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there is, and maybe Swansea could have been pushing for a deal to get him to Burnley or whatever it is. As Stephen Kenny's right, you don't know. I think he'll go without Benny and Parrott up front. I just think with Obafemi not playing recently, that might come into it. And again in midfield, I think it might. He could easily go with the same midfield three as you said: Jason Wright, Josh Cullen, and Jason Malumbi. But I just think he might go with Jeff Hendrick in there, a little bit more maybe defensively minded from Jason Malumbi, a little bit more pragmatic in his positioning, and also, coming up against that Scottish midfield three. Maybe Kenny might want to match the energy in there with a Malumbi instead of Hendrick, but I think with Jason Knight, he might use him in that role of trying to curtail the midfield running from Scotland, which is one of their strengths. And then I think obviously Bazunu will come back into goal. You got Colin, Duffy and Egan for me at the same back three that played. And then the fullbacks, I think they kind of picked themselves. Obviously Robbie Brady, great to see him back in the squad. But I think it'll be Matt Doherty and James McLean, who's been in good form for his club. Wigan kind of playing in a similar position. But that's, when you look at it, it's not the worst team on paper. It defensively, it is quite solid. It's just a case maybe of where that creativity on the break comes from. But I've seen worse Irish teams if that was to line out with Bazunu, Collins, Duffy, Egan, Doherty, McLean, wingbacks, Cullen and Hendrick, and Jason Knight in midfield without Benny and Parrott. I've seen worse Irish teams, that's for sure.
Yeah, and a bit of excitement. Like you said, it's a shame it's 3 or 4 months after the June games. They honestly feel a lifetime ago. I can't believe that's only 3 months. And it's not that we've had amazing amount of football in the summer. I guess the Premier League started a lot sooner. Is there any danger O'Shea starts and maybe they put Collins in the middle of the back three and maybe, or am I mad there? Is Collins always going to be the right side of the three because, Duffy's not going to be around forever? Is there danger Duffy doesn't start before we move on to the wing backs?
No, look, he can. He could put O'Shea in there. He can put Coleman in there. I just think the fact that that back three played against Scotland, and look, obviously, I think Nathan Collins is. I think he'll be. Not whether he'll be the Ireland captain, but he'll be a mainstay of this Irish team for the next 5-10 years, maybe more. And I think that right-sided centre back position suits him. John Egan again. He's someone who rarely disappoints. Obviously, Sheffield United, top of the championship at the moment. The one worry is Duffy. Obviously, he's moved to Fulham. Not playing huge amounts.
Transfer deadline day, wasn't it? Very close.
Yeah, not huge amounts of minutes. Maybe there's the one, but then you disrupt. Then maybe Collins has to go to left side and John Egan through the middle. So I just think he'll stick with that back three, and I think what I'll do is he might bring Seamus Coleman on in the second half or so. And so I think that the big area will be obviously whether he starts Obafemi, which I don't think, or Ogbene, and then the big position is midfield, whether he starts Jason Malumbi, who has been playing for West Brom, or will he go with Jeff Hendrick? And I think he might just err on the side of caution slightly by playing Hendrick, but like I said, it could go out.
I think personally he'll stick with Malumbi. But we'd be interested on that one. Any danger Alan Brown starts right wing back, because you'd be quite excited for Matt Doherty at the start of the season. There's been weird sort of comments from Conte. As far as I know, before the last game, which was the Leicester game, obviously they won, he said Doherty wasn't match fit to start the game, or I think that was the gist of what he said in his comments, or maybe it was off the back of he's only just come back from injury. It's hard really to pick up what's going on there, because the start of the season he actually mentioned in the press conference that Perisic and Doherty would be his number one wing backs. I'm fairly certain of. So I just don't think that's gone quite well pre-season or the start of the season for Matt Doherty at all. Alan Brown is bundle of energy. Is there a danger he goes Alan Brown there over Matt Doherty?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think with Doherty, definitely. I think if there's any position you're going to get into that Spurs team at the moment, they'll be at right wing back.
That's what like it's.
Yeah, and obviously maybe Conte's been a bit of we're winning at the moment, so why change it? And maybe if I think Matt Doherty said that he's kind of Stephen Kenny has to obey Conte by giving him minutes, and maybe this would be the perfect timing for Darty to get back into the Spurs side, because obviously they spent a bit of money on Jed Spence and they spent money on Emerson Royale over the last couple of years. No, I don't see Alan Brown playing there again. I know he had a good game against Scotland. I think he might come on in central midfield, maybe to replace Jason Knight if the game's still kind of in the balance. But I'll be surprised certainly if he plays right wing back. But it's Kenny has been known to make one or two surprising.
Yeah, I was thinking as we were talking, I didn't even remotely consider this, but as we were talking, I was like, "There's no way he's going to go to the back four or anything stupid like that, is he?" You just don't know. But the more, because Collins plays in the back four, John Egan's well capable of playing in the back four. It's just that Ireland have the strength of depth, like O'Shea, etc. That's just not a non-runner. But I was also thinking in the fact that Scotland have gone to a back four, so I don't want to waste too much time on this theory because it just won't happen. But Scotland have gone to a back four.
Also, we're not blessed with, if you play four to back, you want to have good wingers, and it's not that we're blessed with them at the minute. I know Callum Robinson's gone to Cardiff to get a bit of game time. Obviously, he's been a good player for Ireland, but Benny can play that. But just our strength is our defence, and that also includes our wing backs going forward offensively. I mean, Matt Doherty is as good a threat when he's fit as anyone, and obviously McLean does tend to have his moments and is playing well for Wigan, or if Brady played there, he's got good quality with his left foot. So I don't think we'll see him change from a back five. We're starting to work. We're starting to see signs of progress.
No, for sure. Bazunu picks himself. Keller just hasn't got the game time. Bazunu playing week in, week out in the Premier League. I hope they stick with him at Southampton. He's been okay. I've watched pretty much all of Southampton's games somehow. Do you know when you get that team that for whatever reason, and Everton, I think as well, there's a couple of teams this year, I'm like, how am I watching this team every week? And I can't get Arsenal games in or whatever. But he's been okay. It's the Southampton fans have been saying, and then I heard what they were saying, and then I've watched subsequent games that he's not great in his feet, and I'm like, I know that'll all work out, lads. That's his main trait. But then I watched him with his feet against Villa, and it was okay, not his usual. So maybe he's just going to grow into the Premier League role. Maybe there might be a tad bit of nerves there. So I think these Iron games are massive for him. But it's also important to look at this lineup with a view to Armenia as well in 3 days' time and 4 days' time. So the more you say it, you can always start Doherty against Scotland and maybe bring in an Alan Brown that's going to be a little bit more energetic or attacking from that right wing back role, I guess. And maybe that's why they might go with Hendrick. But I'd be thinking, given the Columbia start to the season, that I don't think you change that midfield three, because I think you mentioned this at the top of Stephen Kenny's reign, maybe 2.5 years ago at this point, that he's searching for his midfield. Is it not a case that he's found it now in Columbia night and Cullen? Oh
yeah, he could easily play Columbia, and I just think he might go with Hendrick. I think it's more on a kind of what I'm thinking he'll do. So you're kind of getting it second or third. But he could easily play Malumbi. Malumbi seems to again found his feet well at West Brom under Bruce, who I think will be going soon, judging by results.
He's close to the sack,
if he hasn't gone by now. But no, you're right. Look, I think that was the biggest problem at the start of his reign. God, you'd love to deep dive and have a look at the stats, how many different people have played in midfield and how many different partnerships there's been, and we have seemed to have stumbled across Josh Cullen, and it seems Jason Knight at the moment as 100% starters, even though Knight's been playing a lot of right wing back for Derby, or right back for Derby as well, and then the odd time playing in midfield. So look, Stephen Kenny looks at these lads every week, and his assistants do and the scouts do, so he might change something. But I just think there's something telling me that Hendrick will start in Scotland and then bring in Malumbi for Armenia. But like I said, it's hard to know, but you are a lot more confident about the spine of that Ireland team than you were a year, maybe 18 months ago. But again, you're out at the Euro 24 qualifying fast coming, and Stephen Kenny, that's the one. Even if we don't qualify, if we don't get into a playoff, or we don't get close to qualifying, I think his time will be done. So it's all about these next 18 months. Stephen Kenny, and he'll know that more than anyone. That is for sure.
Well, an interesting subplot is to get to a playoff for the Euros. It's nothing to do with the Euro qualification now. So first and second will guarantee you a Euro spot in whatever amount of groups, and then there'll be 3 playoff spots. I think circa 3 playoff spots. Yeah, I think one for each league. So I think for the playoff, I think the next couple of weeks to get 4 points and finish second in the group, it will be massive. Finishing second in the group could be the difference of having a back door there just in case you don't qualify for the Euros or not. So these are 2 massive games in many respects. I think they're massive games, but they're probably underappreciated now. If we don't get that top 2, this is crucial. And if we finish third, that might not be enough for the playoffs. But yeah, you put your head into this for 5 minutes and you realize how complicated it is. But I think I have a gist of it, that basically 4 points at least from these 6 available.
We also need to look at it now. There's 4 teams in every nations group, where I think there was 3 in the past. So the likes of Hungary are playing in Group 1. You look at this, the 4-team group we're in, like, it's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be thereabouts. I mean, Ukraine last night, I know that they have their moments. Like Ukraine in the second half were a holy show. I mean, Scotland could have scored 5 or 6 if they wanted to. And then the 2 goals from set pieces are horrendous defending. Scotland, we've proven they're not unbeatable. So, you know, if we are to qualify, if we are to be making progress, there's absolutely no reason why we don't get something from both these games. And as you said, give yourself the best chance of getting a playoff. And Ireland have to be at Euro 2024, I think, personally, if Kenny wants to keep his job, because there are positive signs. There's great atmosphere of Eva. That Scotland game, I wasn't at it now, but just the feel-good factor around the place, around town. You want Kenny to have those big nights. You know, you think of those games under Martin O'Neill. I know we lost to Denmark in the playoff, but that Denmark game, the Germany night, the Bosnia game, the playoff. Yeah, you just don't feel like Kenny's had that, you know, big night that has the nation talking, and you just hope his tenure doesn't go out without that kind of whimper. And you do feel like if we got you got a big team at home, and you know, I know we had Portugal and we got a result, but you want to, you know, one of the proper big guns to give them a right good game, and everyone's talking about it. And I think that's when the next draw comes around and the next qualifying group, would be interesting to see how Kenny does with it. But
yes,
it's a good test. Hampden Park away is going to be a good test.
Yeah,
Scotland, Ireland, always good atmosphere.
Yeah,
you're right, Dan. They'll 100% be out for blood and bring it on.
Yeah, the groups will be drawn fairly soon. I think next month. So, and Ireland are playing Norway before the World Cup. So that'll be a bit fun. The 2 best teams not to qualify for the World Cup. 2 biggest names in Haaland and the Republic of Ireland soccer team. That should be a bit fun. Hopefully they sell out the viewer for that. I think they might, with World Cup fever picking up, and Haaland, like put it this way, I want to go and watch Erling Haaland play football. So that it's exciting enough times. Quick prediction: Scotland versus Ireland, Sean.
I'll go. You can't be too far around with a 1-1 draw, but I think Scotland will do it.
Oh no! Going against. I think we'll get a draw. I think we'll get it.
If Kenny goes to Hampden Park and wins, I think it'll be, you know, one of the best results of his reign, and it will just keep the momentum going. But I'm not sure. I think I'm more worried. I know how poor Ukraine were, but I just think Scotland, when they get on a bit of a run, they can be a tough side to beat. And Hampden Park, like I said, it's not going to be easy. But if we do get a result, you're thinking Kenny could be quids in. Yeah.
And the big thing with Scotland Ireland is Scotland having that extra game 3 days before might make them a bit match sharpness, but you don't know till kick off, and it might be fresh legs to it. So let's hope for an Ireland win. I think we'll get a 1-1 draw. Well, fingers crossed we sneak a win there for sure.